let's switch and talk about the economy in more details, especially issues of tariff. It's a big conundrum for the Tinubu government. Well, as Nigeria grapples with multifaceted economic challenges, the recent agitation surrounding the proposed increase in telecommunication tariffs emerged as a poignant reflection of the broader socio-economic landscape against the backdrop of inflationary pressures, fuel scarcity, and contentious wage negotiations. The discourse on rising tariffs underscores the intricate interplay between consumer affordability, industry sustainability, and national development imperatives. Data-driven analysis illuminates the intricate dynamics at play, revealing the intricate balance required to navigate between fostering a conducive business environment for telecommunication operators and safeguarding the purchasing power of citizens amidst the economic hardship that we see. In this climate of heightened scrutiny, policymakers face the arduous task of formulating strategies that reconcile competing interests, ensuring equitable access to essential services while addressing the broader structural challenges contributing to the nation's economic woes. Tonight, attention is on Telecoms tariff. We've been talking about electricity tariff and all what have you. Well, the government has removed tariff on and subsidies on fuel, and it has its effect also. Well, let's talk about all of this. I'm being joined by one man that I run to when I have some economic issues. He's an economist and the executive director and the MD and the CEO of financial derivatives, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, who joins us live from our Lagos studio. Thank you so much, Rewane, Mr. Rewane, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Man, it's a lot of burden for Nigerian consumers. Nigerian citizen and average person is groaning under the pressures that the economy is putting on their hands. On one hand, there is no fuel is scarce. On another hand, you're battling with the effect of fuel scarcity. On another hand, is the issue of electricity tariff. And you're trying to figure out which band you belong, either A, B, C, D. You don't even know. So, Mr. Rewane, what kind of quagmire does the average citizen find itself in this economic nightmare?
Sean, I was watching your program with the governor of Katsina State, and I noticed that out of 28 minutes of your interview, at least 8 to 9 minutes, there was a breakdown in the telecom line of communication. You were unable to communicate with him. He was going from one end to the other. You were struggling. So I want you to imagine what happens to the quality of service when the telco sector disinvests or underinvests or uses assets suboptimally. So 25% of the time of this program you had was spent trying to figure out how to communicate. If there was proper investment, if the service was of the quality that was required because the investments were there, you would not have had that problem. You have lost, and the Nigerian viewer lost 25% of its time trying to figure out how to communicate. I just want to put that as some context. And one thing I have to let you know is that the last time there was a tariff review for the telecom sector was 11 years ago, 2013. And now we are saying here that at that time, Nigeria had a president by name Goodluck Jonathan. Ever since then, there's been President Buhari and now President Tinubu. And the price of a bag of cement at that time was 1,800. Today, that bag of cement is 7,500. It had gone higher. That was an increase of 4,066%. A bag of rice at that time was 12,000 naira. It's now up to 77,000 naira. And now, that is 525% increase. The price of diesel was 196 naira. It went all the way to 1,900. That's up to 1,000%. And now it's down to 1,400 naira, and that's an increase of 614%. The naira was in the forex market was 157 naira. Today it is 1,400 naira in the parallel market, depreciation of 763%. So if you take cumulative inflation from 2013 to now, it's 387%. The minimum wage then, you were talking about minimum wage with the governor, was 18,000 naira. Today, they're asking for 615 naira. And what is interesting is that Comrade Ajero in speaking about all the components of what went into the minimum wage, he spoke about rice, he talked about food, he talked about rent. He did not mention one of the items, which is spending on telecoms. So it has become subconsciously, people have come to assume that telecom pricing and parameters should be constant, as it was in 2013. And let me tell you, even in the basket, the consumer basket, the component for rice is 8%. The component for telecoms is only 0.75%. But you know what? I watch your programs all the time. And I watch in all of those events where governors and leaders are there, 50% of them are playing with their devices even during the session. Play back on any of these programs today. Because they cannot leave home without it. Their device has become an integral part of their lives. You cannot leave home without it. Therefore, what I'm saying here is that the telco sector contributes officially 10% to GDP, but it is a critical form of social infrastructure. Without it...
Mr. Rewane.
Yes, please.
So, I mean, when I heard that the NCC and the telcos are talking about and advocating a tariff hike, I was a bit confused because there will be a pushback from the consumers. But if you look at the next slide, which you have worked on, which is the fourth slide, telling us that there is being a slide in the development in the tariff window.
Yes.
It shows that there is a major problem.
Yes.
But in all of this, Mr. Rewane, how do you think that the average consumer will react to this? If you look at what in this period, yes, there's the lowest tariff in the telecom industry, but then how does the consumer relate to it?
No, but listen, Sean, just like petrol, just like electricity, if you go across to neighboring countries where their income and their GDP is lower than ours, how come there are no queues in Benin Republic, no queues in Lomé, no breakdown in power supply in Lomé and Benin Republic and Togo? How come the telecom system works efficiently? Because if you underinvest in any sector, if you don't manage that sector efficiently, you will get low returns and inefficient outcomes. So that is what it is. You can't eat your cake and have it. You've got to pay for service to get quality. And I tell you what, if you don't do it, what happened to you this evening when you spent 25% of the time trying to figure out whether the governor was hearing you? We'll go on a larger scale. And let me tell you what, it's important. In 1993 or what, you had Option A4. In 20, whatever it is, you had ballot papers and people running away with ballot papers. Now with the IREV or whatever we call the BVAS and all of that, if there's a breakdown in telco service and infrastructure, what will happen in Benin or in Edo State on the 21st of September when they have that election? What will happen in Edo State will be, you see, telco services have now become critical even to political stability. Even with the telco service partially working or working, where elections were supposedly manipulated, 38 million voters came out, supposedly. And if that happens, if there's a breakdown in the telco service because of underinvestment, and therefore it leads to a breakdown in political stability, the consequence is not a palatable consequence. We can go on, and I'm just talking about the political consequence of a failure in telco infrastructure. If you go to the economy, oh boy, I can't even begin to talk about it. 2013, and we've told you what happened in 2013 and how, cumulatively what the inflation factor is, and then price increase. If you don't do that, the result is what you see. Now, in the last year, the telcos have been unable to pay dividend. They were not the only ones, but because of underinvestment, they've been the revenues, total revenues, about $6 to $7 billion about a couple of years back. Now it is down by 50%, and the result is what you're seeing here. Like your struggle now to communicate with the governor is evidence of a failure in the telco infrastructure. Now, the shareholding of Airtel and MTN has been democratized. But you know what? This year, zero dividend because of losses. What they pay, what the telcos pay in taxes and what they pay in dividends is put together is more than 3 months of total federal allocation revenue shared between the states and the federal government. If they lose money because of underinvestment and they go into suboptimality, the state government revenue and the federal government revenues will drop. You will not be talking about the minimum wage of 100. You'll be talking about a minimum wage way below that and higher unemployment. So I want us to sit back and think about the consequences of not investing in the sector. If you underinvest, the sector will go into decay, decline, and the economy itself will suffer untold hardship.
So you've established for us the impact of the tariff and how it has stayed in one place for over several years, and how the telco industry have also experienced some decline. And we've seen from what the profits are in the decline for some of these telcos. And the fact is that the question will be, is it only, so tariff means that, so let's break it down. When we need to pay money, we need to break it down in such a way that we can understand better. Now, this tariff means that the consumer or the average phone user or the data user will have to pay more. Let's assume I pay 1 naira for 1 minute call. That means, it means that I should be expecting to pay maybe 3 naira or 4 naira. Is that what we're saying?
No, not necessarily. What we are saying is that the optimality of use of the resources. If you are going to, what goes into a call? You have your service, you have your base station because there's power. Today, there are 127,000 base stations all over Nigeria. Each of them have 3 generators. You're buying diesel, which you were buying at 195 at 1,300, 1,400. You have optic fiber cables. You have undersea cables that are going all the way through over the Atlantic Ocean and back. These things have to be paid for. There's no free lunch. All the countries in the world are paying, and that is why your tariff levels cannot be subterranean. Let me use a better word, suboptimal. Now, so pricing has to be in equilibrium. Now, if you don't do that, and then you begin to suffer quality of service, what happens is that quality of service leads to low productivity. Low productivity leads to low output. Low output leads to inflation. Inflation leads to weaker currency, and then cost of living crisis. So let me tell you, the good news is that because of quality of service and being maintained, even though you invest and you pay a higher tariff, what you get is that because you can have information at your fingertip, you are not going to be gouged by anybody. If you are telling me today that the Naira value is 1350, and I pick up my phone and I can see it on whatever platform that it is 1300, I will not pay 1350. So generally speaking, inflation declines because of this service. Generally speaking, telemedicine will improve because of this figure. Generally speaking, your artisan and your laborer will, from a video call, know exactly what spare parts you need, and then come to your house only once to come and fix your device or your air conditioner and all of that. So generally, if you look at it, even though you are paying for a marginal increase in tariff to cover the cost of the business, you are getting an output and a return which is infinitely higher. And it's good for the country and good for the economy. If you do not do it,
Mr. Rewane,
yeah,
brace up everyone, because the explanation Mr. Rewane is giving is like, look, this is something that has to happen. The reality we have to live with, sadly so. But then, Mr. Rewane, let's begin on you explaining what must be done.
Okay. Let me tell you what it is. The reality is that in the last few minutes, you were unable to get the slides. Now the communication circuit is okay, and you're able to get the slides. What would have happened is that I would have had to fly to Abuja to meet you, or you would have had to fly to Lagos. We've saved that. The entire country is seeing this because technology is working. But the reality is that 2 things are required. One, updating the pricing mechanism right now so that the prices reflect the true cost today, but also deregulating the pricing system so that People don't have to go every time they want to increase the tariff to go and get approval. There's a consumer protection agency. So because nobody fixes the price of cement, nobody fixes the price of sugar, nobody fixes the price of rice. So first of all, push up the price to reflect its current reality. Then two, deregulate the system so that it's efficient. Because there are four major players here. There's Glo, there's Nine Mobile, there's Airtel, and there's MTN. The intensity of rivalry and the fierceness of competition has made it impossible for them to exploit anybody. And they've kept prices low or at current levels for the past 11 years. And it's time to now reflect it. Because if you do not invest, then the services will fall. And if the services fall, the economy suffers. Well, I want us to note one thing. In the year 2022 alone, the 16% of all corporate income tax in this country came from the telco sector. This year, it's zero because they've declared losses. If it continues next year, you can imagine the effect on corporate income tax, the effect on the Consolidated Revenue Fund, and the effect on what is shared amongst the federal, state governments, and local governments. It is going to be a major calamity. We can't afford to do it. So what do we need to do? Reprice this tariff so that they can make profits that will make them pay taxes that the governments will use to pay for medical service, health, transportation, education, and so that's it. It's a no-brainer. But if you don't do it, you have three options: do nothing, which will limp to death; do the wrong thing, which will cause immediate calamity; or do the right thing, and then you will see the effect of that. It's not even a question to be discussed. It's not when, it's not if, it is when, and it must be done immediately.
Now, do you think, politically speaking, Mr. Rewane, that this government will be willing to take up that difficult task, considering the fact that there's been a lot of agitation against the increase in electricity tariff, for example?
Well, let me put it this way. There's a revenue problem and there's an efficiency problem. If the revenues that the government collects, it is unable to manage it efficiently, and there are leakages, and there's theft, there's fraud, there's lack of transparency, there's nothing you can do about that. The government has to fix its own, put its house in order, right? And there's no excuse for having a disorganized way of managing government. But that does not mean that businesses should be made to pay the penalty of inefficient and corrupt governments. And I'm not talking about, this has been the history of Nigeria for the past 30, 40 years. So we'll fix the problem of fixing government and fixing corruption in government and making sure that things happen is one issue, and that has to be solved. To that extent, we cannot deny people for pricing their commodities and their prices in a cost-plus margin basis. If you do that, what is going to happen? The businesses will die, and the government also will die, and then there will be complete disorder and chaos. So we can't. It's not. I don't know why we're having that conversation.
Mr. Rewane, when I ran to you and when I heard at first that the NCC, the Telcos are thinking about an increase in tariff, and I ran to you, I thought, oh, my friend, Mr. Rewane, see what is going to happen. Can we have a conversation for the interest of the Nigerian people? You told me, Sheil, look, this is something that must happen. This tariff has to happen. And yes, you gave me reason, and you said, give me a date. I'm going to come to explain to the Nigerian people. Let's summarize and conclude on where we need to go and what this government needs to do, and the Nigerian people needs to come to the table also to understand the intricacies and what needs to be done. In summary and conclusion.
Strong correlation between efficient telecom system, perfect information, pure markets, and efficient outcome and competition. What you are paying is pale compared to the efficiencies that you'll get if this sector begins to grow and grow effectively. But the failure to do the right thing, the outcome is going to be a mess. So, like I said, Nigeria has to come to terms with the fact that we pay for service and we run the service, people get service, and communication is so important. 1 minute breakdown in telecommunication means that the surgeon does not get the information, he makes a mistake, and the patient dies. 1 minute breakdown in communication, you know what will happen to an aircraft which is about to land. 1 minute breakdown in communication, you know what will happen. I want you to imagine that there is a 693% increase in transactions, POS transactions and net payment. Can you imagine what will happen if the system breaks down and you cannot make payments today? Forget the fact that 20 years ago we had no mobile phones. Today, the system of payments, the systems of telemedicine, the system of aviation, your voting system, your telemedicine and all of that cannot survive without an optimal and well-run telecom system. It's not even an option. We can't even talk about it. We should be implementing immediately and ensuring that the government, the revenues that go to government out of this are used efficiently for the welfare of the people. We cannot rob Peter to pay Paul.
Mr. Rewane, so much to take in, and I'm hoping the only thing I can do is to pray for the consumers, and let's see that if the figures and the indices get better for the interest
they will be
of
okay, I can assure you.
People. Thank you so much.
They will be okay.
Yeah.
Everybody will be okay at the end of it. Thank you very much.
At the end of the day. Thank you so much, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, an economist and the managing director of Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.